This video is about battery balancing the ONYX RCR 23 amp hour battery. It's also going to talk about the 41 amp hour battery and all the Lightspeed bikes batteries, including the ones you can get for the ONYX, which is the 45 amp hour 400 amp, and also the 52 amp hour 100 amp. It's also going to talk about battery balancing in general, because interestingly enough, not all e-bike batteries can be balanced. So what does that mean? If your battery can't be balanced, you're going to start off that first year, let's say with that 40-mile range. By the end of that year, going into the next year, all of a sudden it becomes a 20-mile range, and even worse, gets down to a 10-mile range. So let's understand battery balancing in general. We're going to use this battery as an example. So in here, there are 160 cells. Each cell is supposed to be charged as close as possible to 4.2 volts. So now imagine 160 cells at 4.2 volts. That's going to give you 84 volts. When this battery is drained, it's going to go down to 60 volts. Now, if those cells are not equally at the same balance, so for example, if we charge this to full, and some of the cells are 4.2 and some of them are closer to 4.1, when you go down and drain the battery, it's not going to be empty at 60. It'll actually empty out at the lowest voltage, which could be anywhere from 62 volts to 68 volts. That's not a surprise that you want. So anyway, let's talk about battery balancing directly this battery with the ONYX 5 amp charger. I'm also going to talk about the cycle satiator 72 volt, the Lightspeed bikes battery 2 to 12 amp charger, and the ONYX 10 amp charger. And so just so you know, the ONYX 10 amp charger is not compatible for balancing. So you cannot balance the ONYX 23 amp hour battery with the ONYX 10 amp. But you can with the 5, the Lightspeed 2 to 12, and the cycle satiator. Lightspeed also has a 2.5 amp charger that I like a lot. I highly recommend it. It's a fanless design. It's actually smaller than this, and it does a great job, and it's balance compatible. So the chargers themselves don't really do the balancing, they just have to be compatible to be able to do that. So as an example, when this charger feels that a battery is full, it just cuts itself out. So it just leaves, it's done. When that one, this one, and this one know that the battery's full, they don't take themselves out of the picture. They just hang around and provide any kind of low wattage or amperage or voltage that it needs. This also is an outlet meter. I highly recommend these. This is also something I'm going to make a blog post about on how to verify if your e-bike battery, any e-bike battery from any brand, is balance compatible, if it can actually balance itself. So that's going to go up in the next day or two, and that's going to teach you, have the link to get this, and teach you also how to verify if your battery can balance at all whatsoever. If it can't, you're going to be buying a new one, replacing the bike, or you can go to Lightspeed Bikes Battery and they can custom make you a battery that can do that. Now, one of the cool things about the Lightspeed bike batteries, you can actually get an app on the phone that lets you talk and see the status of your battery, its health, and it also keeps a log of any issues and things like that. Great apps. So again, let's go back to the ONYX 23 amp hour battery. So I'm going to tell you something first about the ONYX 23 amp hour battery. Leave it on all the time. So this right here is the discharge port that you plug into the bike. This is the charge port to charge the battery. The only reason to turn it off is because you're going to plug this one, the discharge port, back into the bike. Why? Because you don't want a spark. Now, the battery can be on when you unplug it. And everything I just said is also true for any other battery, whether it be the ONYX 41 or the Lightspeed bike batteries. So leave it on, especially for charging, and also leave it on if you're going to store the battery all winter long and not use it. If you have prolonged periods of time where it's like a month that you're not going to use it, or you're going to store this winter long, and this is this battery and all the other ones I mentioned, leave it at 74 volts. It's about as close to the middle as possible for all those batteries. So if you're not using this, leave it on. Make sure you leave it at 74. It's not good to store this empty or full for long terms or long periods of time. So how do you balance the ONYX 23 amp hour battery? Number one, you're going to plug this in, make sure the battery's on. You're going to be charging. So while this charges, when it gets to full, the light on here is going to turn green. When that light turns green, there's still another 95 minutes of what's called a constant voltage charge that's going to happen. That's not balancing. So number one, it charges up to 84, then another 95 minutes of constant charge, and then balancing happens. So balancing, how do you know? If you get a new ONYX with a 23 amp hour battery, balance it anyway. Balancing on average is going to be once every 3 months with this battery with your typical average use. So again, plug this in to the battery, charge it, the light turns green, another 95 minutes, and then you just leave it. Leave it for 3 days. If you can afford to not use the bike and once every 3 months just plug the stock charger in, or the cycle satiator, or the light speed, or the 2.5 that are recommended, or even the YZ power, which I've also got a link for those, that will balance, that's compatible. So this isn't what does the balancing, it just has to be compatible with the battery management system in terms of being able to provide what's considered a trickle charge to balance. So balancing this, again, is plugging it in and leaving it on for 3 days. That's it. After 3 days, this should be balanced. Now, some batteries are unbalanced less or more than others. I do have a chart that lets you verify how unbalanced this battery is. For some people, depending on their use, they're only going to need to balance this for 24 hours, 48, or 72 hours. So, again, things to know: balance compatible, yes, yes, no. So, with the ONYX 41 and the Lightspeed bike batteries, that's not the same thing. That's not how you balance, because those batteries don't need to be balance compatible chargers. They don't care about that. The battery management system on board does its own balancing. So as long as you charge the battery to full, or about 75%, those batteries are just going to automatically balance themselves. Even if you unplug the charger from them, no charger, it's going to be able to balance itself. So that's something you don't have to worry about. So again, I'm going to make a blog post about this and how to verify any e-bike battery, knowing whether it can balance. I'm going to have links in the description. Again, I also recommend the smaller, fanless, quieter version of this from Lightspeed, that's 2.5. And I'm going to tell you something actually a little more here. So the cycle satiator and the Lightspeed 2 to 12 is what I primarily use. Now the reason with that charger is that if I'm sharing the outlet with somebody else, I can actually control its amperage. So whatever amperage that other person's charger is, I can match mine to help that the outlet doesn't go over 15 amps and pop it, or say 20. So with this, it's a little bit of a challenge, and I love this charger, it's great, but you don't have any other option besides 10 amps. With that one, you can dial it. It's just a tiny bit smaller, but I like the variable feature as well. Now, what's cool to know about this one, this is the cycle satiator. I use this with all the batteries, whether it's the 23, 41, 45, 52. And what I do primarily is I charge this at 2.5 amps, because batteries like that. The lower the amperage that you charge them, the better. So this one's $300 new, but you could just get the Lightspeed 2.5 amp charger. Link will be in the description. And that's a great way to generally charge any of these batteries, no matter how big they are. Charge them slow. And then if you want to, you have a charger that can charge faster. And whatever, you could be on a ride, or maybe you forgot to charge the night before, you could throw it on these bigger chargers and you're good. I also recommend that whether you're new or a veteran at this, always bring your charger with you. Smaller the better. That's great, that's what I generally carry. Because things happen, unplanned things happen. Maybe you want to go a little farther, you drove a little harder, and you've always got a charger with you. It's a good practice to have. All right, any questions? Make comments. I'll be sharing this around the different social medias. Hope this helps you guys out, explains everything that you need to know.